Welcome to Danny Houlihan's Irish Experience podcast. Join Danny on a journey through the historical island of Ireland, its people and the wild Atlantic way, which is Ireland's last frontier. Experience the music and the culture that makes up the longest coastal driving route in the world. Now, please welcome your host, Danny Houlihan.
Cuireann fáilte go dtí Slíon Atlantic Ian. Welcome to the Wild Atlantic Way and Danny Houlihan's Irish Experience Show. Our studio Ballybunion, Bhuineán na Siúnana Cúndé Círí. Welcome to you all from the banks of the mighty Shannon River in North Kerry, Ireland. I hope you're all keeping well and safe, my friends. And if you're walking, jogging or cycling, or even meditating, please take care. It has been a busy summer for me here at the studio, with many trips out and around the countryside of ancient Éireann. And also, for those of you who took the time and visited Ireland and toured out with me along the ancient landscape of Ireland. It was a pleasure to meet you all, and I know you all enjoyed your visit here to North Kerry, Ireland, and the country of Ireland. The country of your ancestors. Thus, there is a delay in the podcast series, so without further delay, here we go once more into the history and culture of Ireland. In this episode, I will cover another one of our native trees, the hawthorn, or in its native name, Sheachall, which has survived for hundreds of years in our Irish countryside and is part of our ecosystem. When I walk daily to Houlihan, just below the famous Knockanore, near the seaside town of Ballybunion, the hedgerows are alive with ecosystems, and still have some of the planted hedging that was planted under the orders of the local landlords and absentee landlords from the 1850s onwards. I see our native birds feasting from the trees and bushes at certain times of the year, along the route of the hedgerows, on either side of the grassy hillside that winds its way to the upland pastureland of Knockanore. It's a scenic picture, but I have noticed on my travels in the last few years or so, the gaps in the hedgerows, where the hawthorn and alder, mountain ash, are now slowly vanishing and fading away forever. In some cases over the years, it can be attributed to agricultural drainage, where a ditch and dike being cleaned or removed, the trees were often dug out and in some cases forgotten about by the landowner. Well, it's only human nature to forget, and to forget something when you're very busy. But before I go on, I'm not dropping the blame on the door of our farming community. They have played a vital role in protecting our community. This aspect is where it must be highlighted, and indeed, grants from the government and various organisations to replant all of these old trees should be afforded annually and consistently be afforded to our farming community to replace the hedgerows and trees, like the hawthorn, bit by bit, thus improving our biodiversity, thus enhancing our agricultural landscape. And after all, no farmers or no local producers, no food. Think local community. The hawthorn and other hedgerows, which were planted, were there to keep cattle in and save the livestock, as well as shade. The use of modern electric fences has taken the role of the hawthorn and other Irish trees as a form of preventative measure to keep cattle in. The downside is that an electric fence costs money to a farm to run, while the old hawthorn, alder and old furze bushes cost nothing. Just one plant, and they are there for centuries to keep cattle in and the ecosystems that live in the trees and all around them. The hawthorn starts to flower in May and June, with a white flower and bears a red berry in August and September, which is welcomed by the native Irish wild birds. One can see them on the branches, having a feast on the hawthorn bush. Also, it's a great place for birds to shelter, and indeed, as I stated before, keep the cattle in the fields. The hawthorn, or white thorn, is a deciduous tree, and due to its thorny appearance, was used by our farming community way back into antiquity for decades as the ideal hedging to keep the cattle in the fields and stop them from roaming along the roadways of old Ireland. There was no such thing as an electric fence back then. It was natural protection for the livestock of the farmer, who kept the fence mended by hand. This hard work only cost the manpower, compared to an electrical cost today, which goes into hundreds and indeed thousands of euro or more to the local farm. There were many superstitions within the farming community that they would never cut down a hawthorn tree for fear of a mythological reprisal. Thus the hawthorn was left alone, and indeed some trees grew from their own seed, carried by the wild birds from the branches. These trees are often seen alone in a solitary field, or indeed around a fairy fort. These trees were not interfered with and were treated with fearful respect, and were attributed by the locals to the other world of the fairy and the she. The hawthorn tree is very predominant on the landscape of Ireland, and indeed in my own locality, and can be seen today surrounding ring forts, ditches and hedges, which can be seen from the road from Hawthorn and Ballybunion to Houlihan and Knockanore, and the surrounding sacred places, such as holy wells, where people still to this day leave offerings hanging on the trees with the hope of a cure or a wish to come true. It's a throwback to our glorious Irish past, and indeed some of our lost traditions, gone forever. During the penal times here in this area, where the priests were the hunted order of the day by the English military, the connections with the old hawthorn can still be heard of. One story was that on the slope of a hill near Bromore, in a place called Glan the glen of the high land, there was a clump of old hawthorn bushes, and near that, it was said, there were a pile of stones, surrounded by a large flat stone in the river. Near this, there was another stone, resembling a basin with a hollow in it. According to lore, it was used as a place for baptism in bygone times, and indeed, the old penal mass house was located only feet from this old hawthorn tree or clump of bushes. Another tradition was that the local people of Doon, Ballyea and Tullabeg used to cut a branch or maybush, place it in the garden and adorn it with flowers and eggshells. During the Great Irish Holocaust of 1846 and Black 47, commonly known as the famine times in Ireland, the leaves of the hawthorn were eaten in some areas and known as bread and cheese. In our old Irish Ogham calendar, the hawthorn, or white thorn, is named Huith, thought to give its name to the word fear. The sixth in the Ogham calendar, Huith, can be seen on the Ogham calendar as a horizontal line midway from the central line to the left. The hawthorn is one of the sacred trees of Ireland. The hawthorn tree, in the signs of the zodiac, it has been related that a person or persons born under the sign of the hawthorn tree are a paradox, and are not all what they seem at first glance. On the outside, it is said that they are ordinary, but inside they burn bright and have a creative ability. They have a lively sense of humour and can remember everything, and they are extremely educated on various aspects of life. It is also related that they can adapt to almost any situation and can see the bigger picture. It has been stated, quote, making them great listeners and the ones to go to in a time of need. It has been said by astrologers that the hawthorn goes well with ash and rowan. The tree has many symbolisms that have male energy, but again the historians who have written about this particular subject have said it's a throwback to the old female cool days and druids of ancient times. It was also known as the marriage tree. The hawthorn tree that we pass today along the hedgerows of ancient Éireann was used in ancient times in the area of Ballybunion, Ballyae and Tullabeg and Asti, and indeed around the countryside for medicinal use, as there was no doctors available, and still to this day is used as an infusion to help a person with poor circulation, high blood pressure, and is also used as a herbal tea and other health applications. Just imagine, lying on the hedgerows still to this day, can still be used for medicinal purposes. Travelling through the landscape of North Kerry on my journeys, I often see a field. In the middle of the field is a lone hawthorn. During the winter months, they look isolated and ghostly in their appearance, without their leaves. It's from this appearance that many people in bygone days, around the old firesides at night time, feared the tree, as in many places was not planted by man. Thus the superstition surrounded the tree, and the stories grew up from them as well. Some stories involved the fairy folk and the other world, where the vanity of the hawthorn or any other sacred tree was the realm of the fairy folk, where they would be in residence, a place where they played and lived and practiced their ancient Irish rituals and indeed music. Ihe Sauna, or Ihe Hauna, or the festival at Halloween, the hawthorn tree is in full berry and decorated with vibrant red haw berries, as they are with white flower in May. To see these berries on the trees in ancient times, the old people venerated them. The use of the tree was many and added to the lives of the old Celtic tribes that lived in the Irish countryside, and indeed the countryside of North Kerry. In our Gaelic language, our famous Irish language, the name of the tree is Sceach Gal. The tree has been used in Ireland for handles for implements and, of course, as a lethal weapon, the famous blackthorn stick. I will cover the blackthorn in another separate episode. I hope you've enjoyed our episode on the hawthorn. Once more, I must take my leave of you all, and just to say we have a very interesting lineup for the winter months. And of course, I'll be travelling out again along the famous Wild Atlantic Way route. By the way, which is very important, as I don't get any funding for my research or work, if you would like to support my ongoing research and podcast episodes, why not support my Patreon site, buymeacoffee.com. This will be used to update my research and equipment, and I will give everyone who contributes a shout out on my series. Just click on the link below to support me in any way possible. That is buymeacoffee.com/YXQDanny. Before I leave, a big shout out to Bruce Moriarty in Texas. I hope you're keeping well, Bruce. I know you're enjoying the series and there'll be more on the way. So thank you for supporting my work here in Ballybunion. So everyone, from the banks of the studio, Ballybunion, Winon the Shunana in Kunde Kiri, Slán, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to our show. Through its people, its heritage and its rugged coastline, this is truly Danny Houlihan's Irish experience. Bye for now.